Hey folks, Real Honesty with John Ritlin. I'm John Ritlin, and this is the fourth part of my top 25 favorite horror movies list where I want to thank at WWE NXT guy for suggesting this topic. I forget exactly if it was an exactly top 25, but he suggested a favorite horror movies question that he originally posed to me, and I decided to turn it into a topic, so I'm going to plug him every time I do one of these. So I only got 10 more movies to talk about, so it'll probably be two more parts. Because I don't think I'm going to cram 10 movies into one show, since I'm going at least 20 minutes, and I'd rather only shoot between 20 and 25 minutes on my phone. Anyway, so if you guys have been watching the list at this point, you know how it works. I'm ranking movies, my favorite horror movies, which is every single one of my favorite horror movies going to make this? No, because I probably could have done a top 50, but between 50 and like say 40 it probably would have been, and fair to middle and stuff. So anyway, here we go with number 10, Scream, the original Scream, the best Scream. That sounded kind of wrong. Great stuff by Wes Craven. Neve Campbell arrived at this point. Neve Campbell, beautiful girl, beautiful woman. Courtney Cox is in it. David Arquette. They actually met and were started dating, I believe, on this. While filming here. Rose McGowan was in it. Rose McGowan, by the way, shouldn't have been suspended from Twitter for calling out people for their sexual assault, groping, and rape. I mean, I don't see why she should have been. It was pretty crappy. Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, Jamie Kennedy, a ton of people. This had the rebirth of Drew Barrymore's career after she had had a ton of issues from an early age and everything. But this was the start of a career rebirth for her, and she's doing great. She's clean and sober and doing just great stuff, and that's wonderful. It had its own great horror movie story and horror movie scares and everything with the Ghostface killer and stuff like that. Who was exactly doing the killing? Do you like scary movies? I mean, I can't do the line necessarily, but it was quality stuff. One of Wes Craven's best movies, in my personal opinion. Yeah, and the original Nightmare on Elm Street isn't on here. That's not discounting Wes Craven's movies. I mean, I actually probably could do a top 10 best Wes Craven movies, but maybe at some point I will. Scream gets on here just simply for being... it was in on its own joke. It kind of poked fun at horror movie cliches while having plenty of them happen. But the way it was, and the way it was well written by Kevin Williamson, among others, but Kevin Williamson did that, and he also did, I believe, the second Scream movie. He did I Know What You Did Last Summer, at least the first one. I don't know if he did the second one. But Kevin Williamson, for a few years, was in demand as far as a horror movie writer. But Scream was one of the ones that put him on the map. It brought back Wes Craven into the fold. I mean, even though Wes Craven's new Nightmare did really well, this kind of gave him a shot in the arm as being like a new generation, or, for a new generation and everything. And Wes Craven did exceptionally well. Exceptionally well with this. And the second one, I believe he directed the third one. I actually think he directed all of them, if I remember right. Actually, I believe he directed the fourth one. The thing about Wes Craven is just he was such a wonderful director. He understood horror. Now, some of his stuff wasn't great. I admit that right there. Like Cursed wasn't all that good. But Cursed also had the feeling of, like studio meddling and all that. But Scream was a landmark film, and maybe the best film he ever did. At least top 3. And the cast was all great. Sure, the sequels kind of went down. 2 was enjoyable, was pretty enjoyable. 3 had its moments, was kind of eh. 4 I thought was a nice rebirth. I actually would say the fourth one was the second best Scream movie, but it didn't make it on this list. It almost did. In fact, until a rewrite, I actually didn't have Sleepaway Camp on there and had Scream 4, but I decided to put Sleepaway Camp on there for the ending. But Scream 1, very enjoyable, great cast, great amount of kills. You'll never try to go through a dog door and a garage door. Oh, you can play Psycho Killer? Can I be the helpless victim? All the rules of surviving a horror movie. And just some great stuff. I mean, just great lines there. Very dated, though. I mean, one line in particular that always realizes just how dated this is, besides the fashion and stuff like that. When Billy, Skeet Ulrich's character's first question by the police. And I'm sorry for laughing, but Tell me, son, what were you doing with a cellular telephone? I'm like, oh, God. I was like 15 when this came out. I mean, admittedly, I didn't actually have a cell phone until I was 19. And one of those prepaid ones. I actually didn't even get on any kind of having my own until like I was 22, just because I was against them for so long. Hell, I didn't even get a smartphone until I was 32. And now I can't live without it. Look what I'm recording on it. But just that line, what were you doing with a cellular telephone? And there's just a lot of fun with it. It's good pop culture references, a lot of good fun, a lot of good gore, some good kills, and it's aged well, despite the line that I told you about and some of the fashions. The movie still holds up today. It's a nice time capsule. So I really enjoyed Scream. So at number 10. Number 9, Strangers on a Train. First, but not the only Hitchcock movie that's going to be in the top 10 here. Strangers on a Train is just great psychological horror thriller stuff, like where you got to be careful what you say to certain people in passing conversations and conversations you have with somebody, because you never know who might actually be a killer. You never know who might take your words literally. Guy wants to get out of his marriage and marry somebody else, but his wife won't let him. Talking to a stranger, he finds out, and it's like, this stranger finds out, oh, well, if you're interested, I want to get rid of my dad. Well, after a series of events where the wife's killed, this killer comes to collect. I mean, I'm going to keep the names kind of vague and stuff like that, but just because it's not even that the names aren't really important, but the atmosphere of the movie is. This feeling of dread of like, I didn't even mean to do this, he shouldn't have done this, and he did, and now how do I get out of this? I can't tell everybody, stuff, because if I do, he'll go to the police, this kind of stuff, because it'll look like I did it. And there's a great amount of tension. You will never look at a carousel the same way. And just the little details and the little bits of, great acting and great scenery and everything, great cinematography, show just how great Strangers on a Train really was. It was one of Hitchcock's finest. And Hitchcock, despite being an incredibly disturbed man that fell in love with way too many of his female leads, way too many, guy was a brilliant director. I mean, he was. I mean, I'm not excusing what he did with any of his female leads, or what he tried to do with any of his female leads, or how much he screwed them up in the head. Like Doris Day even said she had to take a break from acting after a movie of his that she was in. And he really liked Tippi Hedren and The Birds and stuff like that. Which I don't blame him. Tippi Hedren back then, especially, was, my God. I mean, back in the early '60s. And I can see why Hitchcock liked what he just shouldn't have been such a creep about it. I just can't ignore how great of a filmmaker he was. Again, that's not excusing his behavior. But Strangers on a Train was one of Hitchcock's finest. Great ending sequence and everything, even for being in the early 40s. It was just great stuff. Building the tension well, building it to the end. Oh my God, is he actually gonna, is the villain gonna get his comeuppance? Is our hero gonna be able to, go on with his happy life and not have to pay for any, of the stuff, because he inadvertently caused this and feels like he inadvertently caused this. And the underlying thing of, there's something really wrong with this guy. And it's implied that he's basically psychotic, which I think he can figure out from the initial conversation. But from the first scene to the last scene, brilliantly done movie. Number 8, The Strangers. Now, okay, people might wonder why I put this movie above Strangers on a Train, which is a great movie. Strangers on a Train worked on a few levels. The Strangers works well just as a straight horror movie. Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman are a couple in a cabin. Not in the woods necessarily, but kind of out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there are other houses around, but not many. And this trio of people, besiege their home. Like, those girls, like, asking if somebody's there. No. And then Speedman and Tyler get, Scott and Liv get besieged by these people that keep trying to kill them. And one of the few modern horror movies that just scared me. I mean, just absolutely terrified me. Now, okay, was some of the stuff predictable? Yeah, and you had only 3 killers. I mean, that's kind of the scary thing. Well, you would expect, it's like, okay, if it was like a group of like 15, 20 killers, I would totally, think, okay, you can't flesh the characters out. But with these, you can without really ever finding out any of the motives. I mean, even in the trailer, when the killers eventually capture Scott and Liv, Liv's character's like, why were you doing this? The girl, and the killer said, because you were home. I mean, if that's not like a bone chilling response, like, it's like, no reason. No reason. You didn't piss off this. You didn't kill my mother in a drunk driving accident. You didn't steal money from us. You did not pick me up. When I was hitchhiking, you didn't. It's like, not that you cut me off in the grocery store line. Nope, just because you were home. That's it. If you weren't home, you wouldn't have died. How scary. I mean, that's how bone chilling is that. And, you have the scene, of course. I think Liv is she's either smoking or she's staying in the, so it's like, so she's staying, I mean, obviously I'm sitting, but like back, I think it was over, actually I think it was over this shoulder. No, it was over this shoulder because of how I'm shooting on camera. It was over this shoulder. And the guy wearing the the sack over his face, kind of like Jason from Friday the 13th Part 2, is shown in the, just walks in the background and it's like behind her, like, I mean, a number of feet behind her, but still. That's chilling. Then the point where Scott Speedman's friend, I mean, like his best friend or one of his really good friends is like coming to the cabin, or coming to the house and everything, trying to find out. And it's just there's no real music. He's just walking down this hall, down this hall, down this hall. No music, no nothing. Builds attention. He gets to the doorway. Pow! It's just like this, shotgun blast goes off. And they end up shooting him. Not the killers, but Speedman and Liv. And it's like, well, I mean, Speedman did, I believe. But it's like they realize, oh crap, we killed our one chance at help. But, they didn't know if it was a killer or not. That was a really effective sequence. Just like really effective scene. Just, it's like building them, just like I'm like expecting, like, and they did that. And you knew something was coming. And it's the fact you couldn't say anything to the guy. That was a really good way to build tension. A really, really tremendous way to build tension. The Strangers was one of my favorite horror movies for that reason. It built things right. Apparently a sequel's coming out, and I'm pretty excited about that. I hope that it's going to be good. I get a little nervous with some sequels. Some stuff's good. Others aren't. Like I said, Scream 2 was a step down from Scream 1, but The Strangers, first one, my God. Great stuff. One of my favorite movies that I own. And number 7, The Shining, 1980. Not the miniseries. Don't remake this, please. Please, nobody remake this. No one can do what Jack Nicholson did. Now, if you take Jack Nicholson out of this goddamn movie, you ain't got nothing. I mean, the kid was kind of creepy. Shelley Duvall was, Shelley Duvall or Shelley Long? God, I always screw that up. Oh, Popeye, she was olive oil. You could tell this movie affected her. I mean, it affected her in scenes. It was just crazy. I mean, she was great in it. But Jack Nicholson made the damn movie go. Now, I mean, mind you, I haven't read the book in a while. I remember deviating some from the book, but Stanley Kubrick was brilliant here. Now, Stanley Kubrick was not always the nicest guy to deal with on set, and apparently he wasn't very nice to Shelley, which is kind of sad. He was not very nice to his female lead. But Jack Nicholson in particular just made this movie great. And of course you have the scene where the black guy that talked to the kid earlier, I believe he's a groundskeeper or something like that, or a hotel maintenance guy. I don't remember every single detail, so sorry if I screw up a couple of the roles. But he, gets axed in the chest by, Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson, honest God, made this movie, though. He made this movie. Stanley Kubrick's brilliant way of lighting, filming, cinematography, the way he built the tension. Stanley Kubrick's one of my favorite directors of all time. He, besides maybe Eyes Wide Shut, he usually directed 4 or 5 star movies, depending on how you rank them. I rank them on 4 stars. or rank them out of 10. He usually made 9 to 10 out of 10 movies. Even if they weren't everybody's cup of tea, they usually made some great movies. But The Shining it was a, well, pardon the pun, shining example of great horror movies. It was great stuff. I mean, again, like I said, you take Jack Nicholson out of it, and you have a 2-star movie. Nobody could have done what Jack Nicholson did. All work, no play, make Jack a dull boy. I'm not gonna kill you. It's like, not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your head in, bash it right in. It reminds me of the Simpsons parody that they did for one of the Halloween episodes, where Homer, the send up they did of that was just absolutely tremendous. But the Shining movie, just great stuff. I mean, it really, really was. It was so, so good. And number 6, The Birds. Okay, I admit this is not Hitchcock's best. But for the pure horror of it, of like nature finally getting pissed and animals getting pissed and fighting back, this is pretty telling and pretty scary. And when the birds start attacking here and there, okay, isolated incidents. But the trick shots and the camera shots and everything, and the way he made the birds look really impressive for 63, I believe, 63, 64. Really, really good stuff. And I mean, yeah, Tippi Hedren, back then in the 60s, she was smoking. She absolutely was. Like, she was great. I could see why Hitchcock liked her. And that's not excusing his behavior again, but the rest of the movie, you set up some pretty nice characters and some really good pacing to it. Get built to when the birds finally start attacking and everything. They attack at the school, they attack at the house. It's this island community and this kind of stuff. It's better than The Birds 2, let me just say that. I mean, I think it was like 94 that they did that, which was stupid. It was absolutely stupid. I heard that they were going to remake The Birds. I heard rumors. I hope not, because I love The Birds. They do not need to be remaking it. I don't understand why they would remake it, except Hollywood's out of original ideas. Or at least original ideas that get a lot of funding. Because there have been some indie movies that were fine. But The Birds is just from, like, pretty much the same Strangers on a Train, from the opening scene to the closing scene. I mean, that whole scene of, like, the birds are taking over the bird. It's not like Birdemic, I mean, which, complete ridiculous schlock, and so was the, so was the sequel, Birdemic the Resurrection, Birdemic 2 the Resurrection, or Birdemic 2 Resurrection. I don't remember how exactly it was worded. I remember actually paying for that on Amazon Video. I paid $2.99 for that damn movie. And I feel like I got ripped off. Actually, it was fine. But The Birds was just good. It was good, a good feeling of dread that it built. And just a lot of really good fun. A really good fun with a really good cast. And you had the drama mixed in with that, mixed in with the horror and everything, with the animals attacking. So normally I do 5 each. I actually got time to do one more. So because I'm going to kind of make the next 4 like pretty long. But number 5, The Omen, 1976. It has Gregory Peck, one of my favorite actors of all time, in it. I mean, it's kind of the same with The Shining. Gregory Peck gave this movie a lot of punch. It's, the whole thing of giving birth to a son that turned out to be the devil. Okay, maybe not exactly, the best thing to find out if you're a parent, but it was still great stuff, and, Richard Donner directed it. Richard Donner, who at that point was a pretty damn good director. I mean, he was just getting started at that point. This is one of his first big projects that I can recall. I mean, I'm sure he did other stuff, but this is one of the big projects I remember sticking out in my mind from early in his career. I mean, of course, I didn't watch it until the 90s, which was a good, chunk of years after it came out. But I had seen this. I had actually just watched this like a month before the remake came out, the 2006 remake that had Julia Stiles and... What the hell did it have? Did it have, God, who the hell else did it have in it? Man, Lee Schreiber, I think it had Lee Schreiber in it. And Lee Schreiber, both are pretty good actors, especially Lee Schreiber, and it was not good. But in the 76 version, you got Gregory Peck. Just great, magnetism, great class that he displayed, as he always did in his movies. To Kill a Mockingbird is also one of my favorite movies of all time. And Cape Fear, the original Cape Fear, was also really good. We get an honorable mention for being on here. Cape Fear, though, Cape Fear I don't really consider as so much horror, but Cape Fear would certainly be on here if I did like a top, if I did a top 25 movies of the 40s and 50s. Well, let's see, because I think Cape Fear came out in the 50s. It came out in the 50s or earlier 60s. Robert Mitchum was absolutely wonderful in that too. The Omen, I mean, you had like the scene where the woman's standing on the landing or whatever, and it's like, it's for you, Damien, it's all for you. Steps off, hangs herself, swings through the window. I mean, that's a particularly haunting scene. You got the one where a plate of glass runs and slides off, decapitates a person. And I mean, yeah, that looks pretty silly because it's obviously a damn fake head because they couldn't actually decapitate, somebody. Not only that, there was only so much they could do back in the 70s. But it was an effective scene for what it is. But that one scene in particular with, come play with us was actually The Shining twins. That was a good scene also. But it's like, it's for you, Damien. It's all for you. And of course the ending where Gregory Peck's trying to kill his son because his son's gonna grow up to be the goddamn devil, and doesn't get to kill him, and then that leads to a couple other sequels that weren't that good. But The Omen is number 5 on my list. And anyway, so I covered 6 movies. I hope you guys enjoyed. I didn't want to give a ton away on everything, and forgive me if I screwed up a couple names. A lot of movies that jumble in my head, so I might screw some of that up. But anyway, now for the top 4 on a future show. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this list so far. Let me know if there are other movie lists you want me to do. Give me comments. Put in the comments if there are if you want me to do a worst horror movies list. You let me know. And also tweet me if you would like. My Twitter handle's in the description. Like, share, subscribe. Also, it's been Real Honesty with Jar Mifflin. I'm Jar Mifflin. I will see you all soon.